we might be another week out on Kemba. I do think the Celtics, though, could be ready.
But yeah.
Well, the plan was to ramp him up in practice for a week and, have him at shoot-arounds and all that stuff. Yeah, they didn't practice all week. So he's at least, 4 days out if that's the amount of practices he would need. So
this is entirely speculative. They
could play on Friday. I think they could.
Speculative.
But
the fact they haven't called it yet, they called the other games early. They knew it.
Yeah, the Magic are on Friday. I believe it's in Boston.
But I don't know. I thought it depends if you count Friday as a day. It's that whole is today a day?
The end of the day or the beginning of the day? Yeah.
If it's 7 days and Friday counted as day one, then they're not eligible. Then they are eligible. But if all of those guys went into the protocol on Friday, if day one is Saturday, then they're not eligible. So I'm still not sure because then it'd be Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday's the seventh day. They got to clear Friday to be able.
Well, their exposure would have been Friday in that game. Yeah.
So Friday to Friday is actually 8 days.
Yeah, it's that whole. Is today a day?
People came.
Wait, how many days are in a week?
Right. Really only 2 days. That was a Seinfeld bit.
It's going to be that wacky skeleton lineup on Friday, though. Is that still true, or some questionable guys like
Tristan and Grant?
Yep, they were the guys who went in early.
Were eligible to return, so that would have put them over the 8 threshold.
Damn, that means less Taco. I was hoping to see more Taco.
But you'd still be screwed because your wings, you still have no Ojeleye, no Javonte, no Jaylen, no Tatum, which means you have to see Nesmith. That's the one downside to the games being canceled is they had no choice but to play him 30-something minutes a game because they did not have another wing. It was 5 guards and a couple of bigs. That was it, It was Pritchard, Smart. They had Waters. Half of their team was under the 6'2" and shorter.
If we're gonna put this in perspective, like where they're at right now, Grant and Tristan went into the protocol on Thursday.
Oh, it was Thursday. Then they should be cleared by Friday.
Yeah, and then Semi, Jaylen, and Green's exposure was on Friday during the game against the Wizards. So that would be their retrospective day. If they didn't test positive, there's a chance that their 7th day could be Saturday this week off that Friday. So Grant, Tristan, if they didn't test negative, if they've continued to test negative, come out of this program after 7 days. Same goes for the other ones who quarantined. The only positives we know of are Rob and Tatum. So Rob's would be up 10 days after Wednesday, which would be sometime this weekend. And then Tatum's would be 10 days after Friday, which would be after this weekend. So if they test negative at some point, those could be as much as 2 weeks for the positive guys. So they could get enough players back. The league wants teams playing with 8 guys. The Sixers actually had to do it with 7 guys last weekend when they had injuries going on. The league actually nailed them because they think they made up the Simmons injury. But they don't want to postpone games. And at this point, they've postponed 7, including these 3 Celtics games. And we have this question, do you just keep postponing games, keep making the spread more? Because it seems like a quarantine at least spread from Tatum to Beal. And then the Wizards had positive cases after that. They had played the Suns, who are now quarantined. And you have an Atlanta game. So, there's evidence here that teams playing each other is spreading this thing because the testing's behind.
Well, it's also just what they're determining is a close contact. You play a game and they don't call it a close contact, but you shake hands and you hug a guy after the game and it's close contact, or you sit on the bench with them for a while. So they're just kind of guessing. They've decided that on-court contact does not constitute close contact.
And that's in doubt now, too, the Athletic.
Now I just read the Athletic article, which is they don't know that that's the case. So, right.
And if that's the case, it's bubble. It's bubble time.
Right. It's shut it down and bubble up,
Which
come up with regional bubbles and then come up with a playoff bubble.
They sort of thought that they knew that was going to happen, but I think they were hoping that it would happen 2 months from now, or at least that they would have the threat of having to go into a bubble where it's okay, well, we're inching towards the playoffs. This is more like the playoff bubble, and 22 teams because they already had the in tournament in place, and so
So
it's happening.
Sekou Smith and for NBA TV was on with Sherrod Blakely on the A-List podcast.
Those guys nailed Harden.
Great podcast, great guest. That guy's terrific. But he thought just his full, and I agreed with it because I was listening at the time when they were recording. I think you tough it out as best you can, do what the NFL did, and just try to survive. And then, live with imperfections and cancellations if you have to along the way, and so be it. And try to make it up where you can, and then just make it a playoff bubble, and that
has to be
that playoff bubble. Right.
Just subject the 16 teams to a playoff bubble. Try to get there if you can. And that makes the most sense if you can make it there, because look, at the end of the day, everyone's freaking out at the NBA for what they're doing, not doing here. But I mean, how are they different than the rest of the world? The rest of the world's going about their business as well, for the most part, trying to put some safety protocols in place, wear masks, do things, restaurants at 20% capacity, XYZ, and then just kind of live with this and deal with it. So that's kind of where they are. If they're going to keep doing it, they're going to take this risk on and go. I mean, everything in the world is safer in a bubble, but the entire world can't go in one. So you either don't play or play with risk. And that's kind of where you're stuck right now. I personally think, and again, I don't know, I get it. It's boring. You leave your family and this and that. If I'm 25 years old and they say you got to go play in a bubble for 6 months because that's your job, I would just do it. I wouldn't love it, but I would do it. What's different between being deployed overseas or working somewhere where you're constantly having to travel or XYZ and be away from people? Sometimes that's just what the job calls for. So I didn't think it was ridiculous to play a whole season in a bubble. I might have tried a 60 gamer and keep it really tight. Maybe take a break, let people go home, come back for playoffs. I don't know the best solution, but at this point they're in it. I don't see any way out until you get to the playoffs, and then maybe you can bubble it up again.
Yeah.
The difference is these are players who are entitled, and some of them are very entitled. Some of them are very rich.
But they're young and they want to
certainly not.
They want to live their lives.
Not of the same mindset of the troops. So I think that they're going into it with a different mentality there. But you're right that there's a lot of people in this world that would go live in a Disney resort for 6 months and get paid millions of dollars to do it and play basketball. And if they have to Zoom in with their family members from time to time, so be it. Like you said, John, a lot of people are making sacrifices right now. So if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. And guess what? They can also opt out. No one's forcing them to go, right? So we saw that happen last year. Some players opted out, and that was their decision. And I'm sure that they're happy with their decision that they made.
So,
and the ones who went to the bubble, I think they all enjoyed, or I don't want to speak for everybody, but I imagine it was a success. It looked like a lot of them were having a good time in there, and it was from a product standpoint for the fans, it was a blast. I mean, it was some of the best basketball we've seen. So we already know that it works. So
I think,
difference.
Commenters can tell us this, but there's something
detrimental. Hear Bobby, can you?
I can hear Bobby.
Yeah. So there's something detrimental to not having games for a week, like the Celtics just did, and then the whole league and different teams getting taken out of action for multiple days. Like, fans just look at that. Like, I know I kind of and just said, screw this. Like, this isn't going to work. We're tuning out. Like, the Celtics season isn't even happening for as much as we're concerned, and that's the big loss right now to these shutdowns. Could you have shut down when the Celtics first had this issue about a week ago for a week? Cleared these players out of quarantine, come up with the better precautions, as they said here, and really hammer down having backup players. Because the reason these games aren't happening isn't because there's COVID cases or quarantine players. It's because they don't have enough players. And why is the G League doing a bubble? I still don't understand this. These are dozens and dozens of players that could be in reserve. The Maine Red Claws could be rolling up in Maine right now training. So when the Celtics have 7 players left, you can ship in 5 players. I can't believe that they're doing this stupid G League bubble. I know, it just makes no sense. There's no money to be made. It's an expense.
I think that sucks. That's the worst thing you're going to do is basically
the entire
so you'd rather have no team for a week?
Yes. I would rather have no basketball for a week than watch 7. No offense to anyone on the Maine Red Claws. It's just you can't crown an NBA champion if half the games are being played with G Leaguers. You just can't. It's going
Well,
to put
right
an
now, half
asterisk
the
on the season.
games aren't being played. Period. I like you.
But Bobby,
Either
you
gonna
know,
They will
it's gonna
be.
affect the
They will
record.
be,
It's gonna
right?
affect the record.
How is that fair? I mean, how is that fair to a team if they, whatever, a few of their players are down, and now all of a sudden they have to play 5 games with the main Red Claws roster, and that goes on their record, and maybe they missed the playoffs, or maybe they are screwed out of a certain seed, or maybe it happens in the playoffs. I don't know, but like if if I'm a fan of a specific team, I would much rather say, hey guys, take the week off, get healthy, and come back with the roster that you spent all this money on and that you've mortgaged your future on in some cases, and you're trying to win games. It's pretty short-sighted to say, oh, let's power through it. The NFL could power through it. They have 1 game a week. NBA and NHL can't do that. I mean, yeah, if you want to plug in a 1 or 2 guys, that's fine. I mean, that's end of, they don't end up playing the court. But if you need to do a situation like the Celtics are in, where you're relying on players who aren't ready to be in the NBA to win games for you, I just don't think that's fair. And at the end of the season,
the fairness is out the window. The Raptors are in Tampa. The Sixers just had to play with a guy named Dakota and Tyrese Maxey leading the way for 2 games against the Nuggets and a Hawks team that are very good teams. So, like, the fairness is out the window here.
It's not completely out the window, but it would be if
I think it's pretty far out the window.
But if it continues, yeah, I think it's out the window. And also, when you factor in teams that we're talking about ultimately affecting the record, and maybe a game or 2 or 3 keeps you out of the playoffs because of that stretch. And at the end of the day, what were we going to get? These lopsided games that we were getting, or better yet, the players not being able to because of they didn't necessarily test positive for COVID itself. To wipe out 6-7 players night after night, I think it's better you postpone it and you make up those games on the back end. Do they realistically make up every single game? Probably not, but at least you'll get a better representation of the record at the end of that. Because you're not going to be able to think about, well, what about those 2 weeks where they were dropping games left and right because they didn't have their guys and they were up against a team that did or had the majority of them.
Yeah, it's I don't want to see the G League.
You guys are so excited to see Aaron Nesmith lead the way.
It's an experiment. Sink or swim. I wanted to see it for 1 game.
Bobby, I want to see 1 Aaron Nesmith. I don't want to see 8.
I'm pretty happy they banged out 3 games.
Between Tremont, Nesmith, and Taco, Celtics were pretty much down in the G League at that point.